This is Dateline, News and Conversation. There's so much happening in the world today. Donald Trump has got everybody in a tither. Europe is in a panic mode. My guest tonight is a good friend and a regular on the show, Blaž Kavčič from Slovenia. Blaž, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Regis. Thank you for having me on your show.
It's always a pleasure and an honor. I'm just going to throw it over to you. I mean, what are your thoughts given everything that's going on and what I just said about the world being in a whirlwind?
Yes, you're right. Now it's very intense period. We have started discussing the topics for this meeting some time ago, so it's been very turbulent time in between. Now, what has been happening? Some well-informed people see it as fundamental change in the world politics. I see it more as a change in narratives and tactics. Some of the suggestions for our discussion have been in the meantime covered by you and your guests. So I will try only to add what I think might contribute to more context. In your last mail, you have proposed additionally to talk about Jeffrey Sachs. If it's okay, I will do that towards the end of our discussion. So maybe I start with an update on Slovenia, a short one. I enjoy on your channel authentic reporting from Armenia, Canada, Palestine, Russia, USA. Slovenia fares relatively well, all things considered, i.e. GDP growth in 2024 was 2.7% in comparison to EU average of 0.7%. It is several times higher, and it seems okay. Of course, these numbers illustrate only part of the situation with important caveats. Demographically, Slovenia breaks all-time negative records. All-time mortality at the peak with 18.8% official excess mortality in 2020. Newborns were at 16,000 last year, which is all-time low. In the 50s, when I was born, this number was up to 34,000, more than double. When my father was born in 1922, it was even 40,000. And the population of Slovenia was then, at the beginning of 20th century, only about 70% of today's total population. Slovenia today is overflown with migrants. Our government is as vessel as any other in European Union. People are zombified. Most of them have to work at more and more precarious jobs. Elite is corrupted and unwilling to critically look at the state of the nation. So this would be in short for Slovenia. Now let's go to Trump. I don't see him having his own agenda based on his own statesman vision. He is master of gaslighting, sweet-talking naive masses into cheering their own demise. Many commentators call him a business man. I would rather describe him as a con man, not really businessman, a master of hustle. He follows the orders from higher power networks. Everything he talks about is in line with Club of Rome long-term depopulation and global dominance plans. Even more devastating is what he does or signs So one thing is what is he talking about, and then what is he signing, and the third thing is what he's really doing. And I do not understand how people do not want to comprehend what Trump spoke and executed during his first term. Tax reform, further enriching the richest and destroying the middle class. Warp Speed Project, force vaccinating people with poisonous jabs using military power. Trump himself, we can quote him, boasting to deserve the credit for coronavirus shots. All-time record increases in military budget spending, killing Iranian anti-terrorist peace negotiator Qasem Soleimani and other persons around him, dropping mother of all bombs in Afghanistan, proposing assassination of Julian Assange, and so on. So Trump has recently initiated widespread responses, which is a good thing. Its vibrations have intensified. He came out bluntly, brutally, openly presenting his personal profile, which is far from humanistic, far from empathic one. From my perspective, comments we could all follow on the social media are maybe a step forward, but still far from comprehensive analysis and vision. Major media are a military division of the controlling powers anyway. Now, about alternative media, they are also highly influenced by visible or invisible sponsors and handlers, especially the big ones. They are ignoring the obvious. If we take as an example the comments on the horrendous genocidal Trump plans for Gaza, I did not come across any explanations revealing that Trump's plans for Gaza are in fact a direct implementation of Build Back Better concept, which has a while ago been universally promoted by top politicians reading from the script. Build Back Better concept is a perverse concept out of Agenda 2030 toolbox. It means what? It means intentionally destroying, burning, crashing everything that constitutes our more or less normal way of life. Destroying buildings, forests, killing people, building better means building better for the predatory caste to implement full spectrum dominance. New buildings and towns are built according to the prison planet plans. In his infamous speech, Trump has reduced Gaza problem down to manufacturing, to technological problem, letting Israelis kill off all the Palestinians, then corporate developers with Arab states' money will clean the rubble and build luxurious resorts for the citizens of the world. Just like Nazis reduced the Jewish question down to technology of killing and disposing of the bodies. By the way, I don't know if you have seen the documentary of Vera Sharav. She's a very progressive Jewish person, also promoting the problem of Gaza on the right side of the history. She is against the genocide in Gaza, and she's very blunt. And I have been listening to her and to some of her guests in this documentary. And actually, her guests reminded me that also me, personally, I'm also a survivor. I'm a third generation Holocaust survivor, actually, because my grandmother mother of my mother, she was killed in Auschwitz. So why I'm mentioning this? Because Zionists have made this as a trademark in a very perverse way. I want to remind us that people of long list of nations have suffered in the history, also during Second World War and after Second World War. So we are in one boat, and we should not let ourselves be divided into Jews, Slovenians, Americans. We ordinary people are in the same boat. But coming to the questions of today, now Bill Gates and his cronies reduced the question of supposed pandemic to the manufacturing question also. How soon and how will we be able to produce enough vaccine for the population of the world? Leaving aside the basic fact that vaccinating the people was in fact poisoning people in accordance with Club of Rome population reduction plan. And I would like to point out that using we has become one of the most frequently used narrative tools. Who is we? It's so often used. Also, alternative channels are using, for instance, we the Americans have invaded and plundered. This is wrong and helps the controlling powers play their game. We are we, the people, the many. And we are dealing with a class struggle question. Class struggle question, caste struggle even. We, the Americans, the Russians, the Slovenians, the Palestinians, have a similar interest in common: to be able to live a good life and pursue happiness. And we have a common enemy, not any other nation as such, but global parasitic caste operating through organized statal and super-statal structures. Now, another very important question is question of Ukraine. And this is also reduced by many to manufacturing question. Russia is in a position to produce 3 times more grenades and other weapons than NATO countries together, is a statement we hear from all the sides. Summarily, the contributions of many alternative pundits reveal most of the truth, present the most important facts, but nobody seems to connect the dots together in a meaningful way. This is exactly what the controlling powers want. Many different explanations, conflicts among them, letting the main strategy go ahead. So this would be a short view of the things you have triggered with asking about Trump and last events. Before we go to the second subject, which I think should be BRICS.
You know, you and I have had this conversation several times before about what is really going on. And my feeling has been we are being subjected to a spectacle. There's so much that's happening, and people, I think, are overwhelmed. I am feeling sometimes overwhelmed, but as you just said, everything that's happening is connected, and it's part of another agenda, not ours, but of this supranational globalist cabal. I don't want to call them elite, but financial capitalists, whatever you want to call them, parasites. And none of this is good for anybody. You mentioned a couple of things that I think are important. You said this is not a war or a fight between countries. It's a class struggle. Now, there are a few people, not that many, who keep pointing that out. And I would like to keep this in mind as we go forward. You know, you and I have talked about UN Agenda 2030. And you've said, well, there's some things in it that sound good, but then there's some things that might not be so good. And I'm not sure where you want to go with this, but I think that, and I'd like your opinion, this agenda, UN Agenda 2030, is the agenda of these globalists, which I think you just alluded to. And Trump, he's just another one of their figures that's playing a part. Would you agree?
Yes, of course. Let me take this discussion in this direction. By the way, I liked very much your last discussion with Edward Curtin, where this question of spectacle came out, and I have read this book some years ago, which he was mentioning. It's called Disposable Futures by Brad Evans and Henri Giroux, subtitled The Seduction of Violence and in the Age of Spectacle. It's very important. It actually gives you a complete picture and helps you understand what is really going on. And when I said that we are dealing with a class struggle, of course, I don't want to say that there is not a war among national states. Of course it is, but it's important to understand that national states are used here as a structure to perform killings. And the main interest of, well, we should understand what this phenomenon of wars actually is. And we have been discussing it. Let me just in one sentence explain that this phenomena, which are most important in today's society, like wars, terrorism, religions, technology, pandemics, these are phenomena in our society. They really cannot be correctly, meaningfully explained and understood if our thinking is limited to contemporary dogmas. And we have discussed and we have covered this subject in the past. We are talking about the dogma of democracy, dogma of carbon dioxide, dogma of money, and dogma of virus. I will not repeat this. We have discussed it, but unfortunately, I see we have to come back again and again, because the main thinkers of today, they are limited by at least 2 or 3 of these dogmas. Some are limited by 4. So when you said that there is something nice and something not so nice in agenda, I think the narrative is very exciting of all the chapters, 17 sustainability development goals, 4th industrial revolution, everything is shining, exciting, nice, appealing, and so on. The problem is the content, the substance, and the consequence. So the problem of Agenda 2030, if you look just the surface, equity, resilience, drinking water, nobody left behind, clean environment, and so on. Everything seems nice, but the main problem of Agenda 2030 is that it is built on false, completely false cornerstones. One of the main cornerstones of Agenda 2030 is presumption that carbon dioxide is supposed to cause global warming, and that this carbon dioxide has to be eliminated. But the fact which we can learn from uncorrupted science is that carbon dioxide is a gas of life. It drives. It is a food for plants. It drives photosynthesis, and we are at present at the lowest level of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere, which is necessary for supporting optimal growth of plants. So this is the main problem of Agenda 2030. Nice words, but devastating content. But people like to accept this smoothing, comforting titles, and the comfortability of some of the functions of mobile phones, of digital ID, and so on. So population gets sort of nudged into accepting the digital transformation, because the main goal of Agenda 2030 is elimination of normal, organic, natural life, and substituting it with synthetic processes that can be centrally controlled, monitored, channeled with the help of artificial intelligence, blockchain, and other technologies. So this is the problem of Agenda 2030.
The language is wonderful. When you read it, as you were saying, on the surface, but things couldn't be better. But when you go back and you look at some of these pillars, these foundation principles, and you mentioned carbon dioxide, and we're being scammed about. We have to get rid of and lower carbon dioxide. Carbon tax. Oil, gas, bad for us. Blah 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 blah. And in terms of a UN Agenda 2030, it's also about sustainable development goals. Connect this concept, a project, if you want to call it that, with what you are talking about now as part of this Agenda 2030, which really is all about eliminating the population, 7 billion people. It's really all about full spectrum dominance. So talk to me a little bit about sustainable development goals, because that sounds wonderful as well.
Yes, well, I was positively disposed to it even 10 or 15 years ago, when I was Speaker of the Second Chamber of Slovenian Parliament, and I was going around on these conferences and millennial goals and so on. It sounded okay, but then when you go deeper, you see that this is all a scam. Now, maybe we should illustrate these questions a little bit more with the concrete practices of our friends in BRICS countries, because, as you know, I am a BRICS supporter, but a skeptical one. So I'm critically looking at things. I would like this concept to really start to represent the alternative to what is going on. So let's see where countries of BRICS are positions in relation to Agenda 2030 and Fourth Industrial Revolution and 17 Sustainability Development Goals. For a start, I propose again that we look at things from a class, even caste struggle perspective. And we should understand the social classes or castes in a modern way, not in a classical Marxist way, because I think it is obsolete, more in a Karl Polanyian way, the structure of society. So we the many, we the people of the world, we are actually the class of citizens, which covers, let's say, 90% of the people of the world. It is not any more productive to separate the industrial workers from employees and from teachers and from pensioners. This is also we are all in a citizens class. Now, there are controversies, conflicts, wars among states and alliances, but there is one basic conflict in the background. Interests of the ruling caste against the interests of a majority of people and nature on the other side. It's billionaires against the rest of us. Reducing now, which is very often, and we are overflown with commentaries of this kind of reducing the problem down to the bankers. So the bankers are the only problem, or the Jews are the problem, or Zionists are the problem, or communists are the problem, capitalists are the problem, socialists, Marxists. This is all part of a cognitive war, and it's working. It's very efficient. Now, reducing problem down to the imaginary conflict between communism or socialism on one side and capitalism on the other side is simplistic and misleading. So Trump is a master of bombastic spectacle and has no problem in using conflicting narratives and positions. He is an ideal personal profile to implement spectacle and violence, which is all part of better understanding of what Agenda 2030 and development goals really are about. Now, I don't think Trump is innovative with this concept of taking over, or invading, or ruling over Greenland and Panama and something else. This is the concept of technate, a transhumanistic and technocratic merging of North America, Central America, part of Latin America, Greenland, and Alaska. And it has been here for decades. Nothing new there, but hardly anybody addresses the questions regarding BRICS. Now, how are BRICS positioned to this? We have to ask ourselves, is BRICS really sincere, complete alternative? As I said, I am supporter of BRICS, a skeptical one. And I have to expose the most important fact of today, which hardly anybody mentions. United States of America, European Union, NATO, and BRICS states, they all support Agenda 2030. So Trump, Musk, Putin, Xi Jinping are in line with the same strategic overlord who uses network of handlers. And I have just today been listening to a very interesting discussion of your friend of the show, Dimitri Laskaris, with John Helmer. A very interesting discussion. And John Helmer explained very nice how difficult and complex situation Putin has to handle. The interests of oligarchs, which are very important with different industries, foreign interests, and so on. But it shouldn't be an excuse for us not to try to see the reality. So regarding multipolarity versus unipolarity concepts, nobody seems to ask why polarity. Polarity is a trap as a concept. It means opposing, antagonizing setup. why not friendly alliances of cooperating national states based on the principles quite clearly formulated in United Nations Charter? Not that I would support United Nations as they have developed to be today in the world as a potential world government and the perpetrator of the worst projects. But United Nations as a concept has a lot of positive things, and after the Second World War, very important strategic positive documents have been accepted by the member states of the United Nations. Now, once we had this non-aligned movement, and it was pursuing peaceful, active international cooperation. Now we are confronted with Trump's tariff threats, which are basically a form of political professional wrestling, meaning that they are only in part real. One part is always a spectacle and manipulation. These tariffs make no positive sense for the people of the United States and for the people of the countries of the world. It is just a burlesque of the power elite. But as we have seen, vassal leaders will obey and adapt. It is just like Putin said, that they are barking and barking, but then they will start wagging their tails and obey the master when the time comes.
Blaž, you just mentioned Trump and tariffs. And in light of what we've been talking about, these are some things that Trump has said that's caused a lot of confusion and even panic among people. For example, he is telling the EU and NATO, you need to cough up more money. Okay, this is your problem, your security. We've had these frantic meetings in Paris and in London of the EU hierarchy. Trump has indicated he wants to pull out of the World Health Organization. Now, another organization that we've talked about in the past and we haven't mentioned tonight directly is the World Economic Forum. I've never heard Trump say anything about that, nor have I heard anything from anybody involved in the World Economic Forum speak about Trump. So I'm wondering how that fits in. But let's now focus a little bit on what Trump is doing. And I would like to ask you, do you think Trump knows what he's doing in service of the agenda, the globalist? Or do you think they've just picked the right character and, I don't know, are feeding him a script? So what do you think is going on?
Well, I think that Trump is just one of the many, but maybe most important this period of time, personality which has been groomed for generations, prepared. As I have already mentioned, many commentators like to find good positive points with Trump, explaining that he's not career politician, that he's a businessman. But in fact, he is many times saved from bankruptcy, hustler, speculator. He's not, somebody said today he's a builder. That's why we should, he's not a builder. He's a real estate speculator. This is completely different things. Real builders who know how to build houses often go into bankruptcy because of hustlers like Trump. We have them all over the world, speculators. So event 101 was very illustrative. It was in Trump Tower before the beginning of C-19 or Corona project. In Trump Tower, there were American security forces, CIA, people from around the world, NHS, Chinese representatives. So there was a global elite that prepared a plan for obfuscating the population of the world. And here, Trump is an ideal person. He says one day one thing, and the other day he says 180% different things, and it's all okay. So he's all the time throwing balls, and people are confused. So the main strategy of event 101 was flooding the zone. Means that people have to be overflown with information. So there is no lack of data today in the world. Actually, also the truth. You can find the truth if you have a system of finding it. Everything is up for grabs. But when you are overflown with too much information, people cannot find their way out, and they don't understand the things. So we need some controlling questions. Here is my proposal, and I try to formulate it in different ways. What would I like to say? Any influencer who was surprised or even shocked by Trump's plans is objectively supporting the globalist agenda. Maybe a rude statement, but I would like to shock people in positive way to start thinking outside the dogmas. So any influencer who tries to bolster hope for a positive change to be delivered by people like Trump or Musk or RFK Jr. or Tulsi Gabbard is objectively supporting the globalist agenda. Voltaire, if we go 500 years back, one of the greatest Enlightenment thinkers and political activists, has exposed empty, false, imposed optimism as one of the main threats. And he said, value of the belief should be judged by its practical consequence, not its theoretical elegance. Now, what are the relevant facts? Musk and Tulsi Gabbard are young world leaders. Trump doesn't have to say 100 times World Economic Forum, or he can, it's irrelevant. His key persons are connected with the global predatory elite. So Musk and Tulsi are prominent young world leaders from Klaus Schwab, from World Economic Forum, and they have never said that they would like to stop being promoters of Klaus Schwab's transhumanistic and technocratic visions. All major Trump team members are involved in crypto and media global scam. They not promote quality of life only in their narratives, but they are acting against it. So they promote quality of life with nice words, but in fact they are destroying it. So if we have a look at the people you have also mentioned with some other guests of yours, like Peter Thiel or Vance or others we have mentioned, they are all promoters of crypto and fourth industrial revolution, which means transhumanism, technocracy. And here come in the categories which will have to be understood by the pundits. Web3, smart contracts, wellness, flow, coherence, swarm intelligence. This is the direction where Agenda 2030, Fourth Industrial Revolution, digital transformation is driving the world. Towards swarm intelligence means connecting every human being on the planet into some kind of network by pretense that people will in this way help achieving digital democracy, but in fact, this is a nightmare. This is dystopia where all the human beings lose their spirituality and freedom and become only small parts of a digitally controlled machine. Now, maybe just to add few facts about Jeffrey Sachs, which goes very much in line with your question. Now, Jeffrey Sachs was one of the leading economists, as you said, during the beginning of 90s, functioning as a tool of imperialism. He has tried to explain then, now in recent years, his role, but never really self-critically admit his mistakes or perform some sort of catharsis and come out with new, better social governance concepts. He did not do that. He was trying to sugarcoat his role in the past, also in Russia, by elaborating that his proposals for Russia were not implemented so that the results for Russia and other East and Central European countries could be better. So, but what was the essence of his proposal? He claims he has proposed to increase the credit lines from the global financiers to Russia. So not how to help Russia create more value nationally, but how to financially enslave Russia. This was the core of his proposal. Michael Hudson, probably most relevant heterodox political economist, once stated that the Nobel Prize winning economist, Paul Krugman, did not know what money was. So Nobel Prize economist does not know what money is. And something similar one might say for Sachs, a modern economist that does not define financialization of economy and society as a major problem is collaborator of predatory globalism. Sachs has exposed his role of academic economic hitman with his promotion of Wuhan lab leak theory. So he went out of economics and explained about viruses. Of course, in a wrong way. His criticism is sometimes valid, like in the case of him criticizing Ursula von der Leyen. But it's much like Vance criticizing the European Union for not respecting freedom of speech and democratic elections. It is a relevant question, as Sachs is promoted by our colleagues, friends, as a hero of truth and justice, also by the channels supposedly on our side, like Duran or Cristoforo or Garland Nixon and others. So yes, it was a good idea to invite me to contribute few thoughts on Jeffrey Sachs also.
Yeah, I don't want to linger on Sachs. I want to continue to explore some of the things you've talked about that are preventing people from finding the truth. Sachs, in my opinion, today is just another one of the talking heads in the echo chamber that have overwhelmed people with information. They don't know what to believe themselves, so they latch on to whoever is saying something that really they agree with or that they like. And if I understood what you said, being able to find the truth on your own is being able to find your own sources, be able to understand the agenda that we are being subjected to. You know, you mentioned the digital transformation, transhumanism, technocracy. This terrifies me. You know, this is already starting to happen in different parts of the world. In China, Russia is beginning to experiment with this. And I think if I understand what you're saying, when you look at all of this together, it is really trying to transform who we are as humans into some sort of, I don't know, robotic digital network and or hive mentality. It's really hard to describe it, but what are your thoughts on what is playing out now? What people are being subjected to really around, well, certainly in the Western world. Trump, he's not really in favor of NATO, wants to cut the budget. He's not really excited about the EU. He's really been polarized. The EU seems to be in some kind of a panic. How do you see this in terms of the spectacle, the agenda? Is it really real, or are these people all playing a role?
Well, these are all, like Zelensky is a good example. They are just actors, better or worse actors. And of course, Trump or Biden or Bobby Kennedy, they are different in this respect, that they come from dynasties that have been covering the landscape for generations, some more, some less. But let's say the grandfather of Bobby was still part of the organized crime of mafia, bootlegging whiskey and so on. So yes, we can say a lot of good things about John Kennedy, but also his personality is complex. But he's really one of the most positive personalities, statements with statesmanship and so on. But we have to be also realistic in what was going on under John Kennedy and so on. So what I want to say is that yes, the spectacle is the main thing with which humanity is being controlled. And there is one thing actually very simple, very complex, as you would like to take it. If like you and me are discussing now, there are a lot of intelligent discussions taking place. But we have here a situation where a lot of good ideas may be discussed in thousands of human relations and conferences and so on, but the globalists are acting according to military plan, and they are just adapting it. And so as long as we, the people who would like to live a good life and who understand that good life can only happen when it is good for most of the people, we will have to organize first for defense and then for liberation. But there is no really good, there is no real fighters. I mean, the best examples today are maybe the fighters for survival in Palestine, because they are pushed in a situation where they have nothing to lose. On the other side, now in Serbia, we have still ongoing protests of students, which seem to be very important and very threatening to the government of President Vučić. But my question always is the following. When we deal with protests, is there a comprehensive program in the background? like you and I have discussed already in the past, the Occupy movement. Then we have Yellow Vest. We have the Freedom Truckers in Canada. Now we have students in Serbia. Yesterday we had farmers in Netherlands and Belgium. But there never was a program with these groups. I mean, when I was listening very carefully to the Canadian truckers, what was their program? They were begging to have a meeting with His Majesty President Trudeau. They should demand that he disappears as a president of Canada. Not asking to talk with him. So all these protests are like Arab Spring. You know, if you lose your energy in trying to explain to the global predators or to Nazis managing the concentration camp what is right and what is wrong, and you ask for more food or better sheets on the beds and so on, well, it's just cattle slavery, chattel they say in the States, chattel slave. So people should organize, and now we should not unfortunately expect positive changes from amorphous giant masses of people. Maybe a lot of people will start following a good program, which should be prepared by national avant-gardes, by national elites, but elites in a positive way, avant-garde of proud citizens, of good Americans, the people that love America, but not like this MAGA movement, which is a scam. It's a total scam. But people are hypnotized. So I want to underline that without a clear program and comprehensive goals, which can be long-term, it's not, of course, we cannot change things from today to tomorrow. Every protest is losing the energy in vain. Yes, it raises the temperature, but what will be here tomorrow? The same thing or worse, because people then get the experience, it's no use protesting. And if Regis, if we critically look back at the Occupy movement, which was really very important, and a lot of excellent people were included and so on, but was there a comprehensive program? No, there wasn't. There was only protesting some concrete, real problems, yes, but not addressing the system of decision-making in particular country. Unfortunately, it will have to go this way, or we will all disappear before anything changes for better. I hope not. I hope that when things start getting as bad as they are in some parts of the world, people will start organizing. But the main problem is corrupted academic class, because these are people with a lot of knowledge, but they are not using their knowledge to help organizing better life in national states.
Yeah, we've talked about this, and I'm in total agreement with you. I was very actively involved in the Occupy movement back in the state of Maine. I created a monthly television program. We were the first in the country to do that. And I have to agree that there was no plan. They told it was an organic movement, and that somehow this organic movement was going to continue to grow and develop and eventually change things. It didn't happen because it was Obama over one weekend gave the order, and every single occupied camp in the country was shut down. But I'm wondering, I think people around the world are beginning to feel pain. I I I think people are beginning to realize in many, many countries that their governments are not serving their needs. And I think it's got to be obvious. You can look in terms of poverty, you can look in terms of health, you can look at terms of quality of life, you can look at terms of optimism, and it's just not there anywhere. And you mentioned, MAGA. Well, there's a lot of excitement there, and they think Trump has a plan, but my goodness, none of that plan talks about the things that you and I consider really important. And you've written about this and you've talked about this, and it's the vision of a healthy, high quality life for all citizens in a free, social, democratic, legal, and sovereign state in which the people have power. And that doesn't exist anywhere right now. But that vision, as far as I'm concerned, is a starting point. Now, Blaž, we've talked about this before. How can we facilitate this organization of like-minded individuals around the world or in a handful of countries that could be the avant-garde, that could be the luminaries as we're going forward into the future to resist the agenda that these globalists are imposing on us. Let's conclude with that thought and your thoughts on, Blaž, how are we ever going to get organized?
Well, 10 people we need in each national state, which we don't have today. I look at Slovenia, I look at Serbia, I look at Croatia, at Russia, at United States. There is, I do not see any group of 10 patriotic intellectuals who would formulate strategic analysis and strategic plan. Then how can we expect from the masses of people to do anything? They will ask us, what should we do? And if we had 10 people in 50 states, it would be a big intellectual potential of 500 people around the world. And but the only real change will have to be implemented in national states, state by state, but preferably internationally connected. And the other side is also aware of this one and is more active. I don't know if you have heard of the organization called UNIDROIT, UNIDROIT. This is the Vatican-based organization actively working in 64 countries of the world in a direction of superseding the power of national constitutions, means overriding the national constitutions with some new concepts of the law. So the other side is very active. From Hollywood, Disneyland, to wars and pandemics and Vatican and yoga, all the levels are very intensively exploited to obfuscate. And the only things will start to change when we will be able to say we have these 10 people in Russia, these 10 people in Slovenia, who have a national program, comprehensive program for defense and liberation of their national states, or in the case of Russia, it's a federation.
Yeah. Um, I don't see it happening right now.
Neither
Um,
do I.
yeah, and I'm just wondering if there's any way out, any hope for humanity, given how fast this globalist agenda is unfolding. I mean, they don't even hide it anymore. It's right in your face. And,
Exactly.
I think there are other people trying to do what we're doing, exposing the agenda. Uh, but unfortunately, um, you're one of the few, I think, that has been intellectually uh, exploring these ideas and have really come up with a plan. And I don't know. I just don't know how we find those people or we recruit them. I didn't want to leave on a negative or a unhappy note, but I think maybe Blaž, shocking people, maybe just putting it right in their face repeatedly is about as much as we can possibly do. And hopefully we attract other like-minded people who are willing to pursue this. Maybe there's a lot of time left. I don't know. Um, but when I look at the speed of this and the way it's unfolding, especially with crypto and digital transformation, once that happens, I think the game is over for us. I think they'll have trapped us in a technocratic prison. Anyway, I want to thank you so much. We've got to keep on this, Blaž.